Fala galera do Voxel, tudo bem? Eu sou Francesco Casagrande e estamos aqui na presença de uma pessoa muitíssimo importante que está trabalhando em um jogo muitíssimo importante. Eu estou aqui com nada mais nada menos do que Pawel Sasko, que é o Associated Game Director do próximo game Cyberpunk, mas também trabalhou em nada mais nada menos do que o primeiro Cyberpunk e também The Witcher 3. How are you doing, Pastor?
Hello, oi chums. I have arrived to Brazil a couple of days ago, had a wonderful Brazilian barbecue, so already see the most important part of the Brazil, of course, you know.
Yeah, the Brazilian barbecue is the big thing that you can have here to eat. But I recommend you to other foods that we have during this period of the year that we call Festa Junina. It's like a June festival.
Oh yeah. I heard a lot about Festa Junina. Yeah. I heard a lot about this. Yes.
And I heard a lot about your work because, as I showed you right now, I have a tattoo of The Witcher 3 in my arm and one of my favorite games. And I saw that you were the quest designer for a lot of the missions in the game, but was one of the main creators for the quest of the Blood and Wine expansion, right? And what does a quest designer do? Like, it's just create the story and the setup? What do you do?
Yes, great question. So as quest designers, our job is to make sure that we write the narrative, we figure out the story, we figure out the characters, we structure it, we make sure that it has a great pacing, that it has cool ideas for the design, you know, how the story is told. And then when you have all that design figured out, then what do? We implement it. So afterwards, you're going into our engine using our tools, and you're implementing it, building it all up, scripting it, making sure that everything works as well as it can in the game. Then you're bug fixing it, and then you're shipping it, and you're working on the patches, you know, for the game if that's needed. So quest design really has this like two main avenues, I would say. One is the design, and another one is the technical part, as we call it, the implementation part.
What makes a good mission? Like, what is the first thing that you need to realize to know that this mission will be good, this mission will make the game?
Oh, excellent question. So there's actually numerous rules I talked about in my lecture today in regards of the quest design, and you know, numerous things I pay attention to, yeah, right? Our game is a non-linear RPG, so of course, you know, important thing for me are choices and consequences, if they are involved in the story and how many of them there is, right? And I always want to make sure that our designers pay attention to also telegraphing the consequences and showing them to the player, you know? But that's one of the things. There's other things, like for instance, your characters, right? You need to work on your characters. You need to make sure that characters are made as well as possible. And the thing is that for us in CD Projekt Red, like the characters are the primary force, they are your primary weapon, they are your primary way to tell your story. You know, they are not the servants of the story in a way, you know, the story goes around them. And thing is that sometimes, you know, it's really, really important that you can even change, you know, things actually in your plot, just to be sure that your character is actually done as well as possible and that they're as fascinating, as interesting, you know. So I really pay a lot of attention to characters. You know, like when you actually at the end of the day play the game, you will remember Judy Panam, Carrie River, right? You remember them, right? You remember Judy as your best waifu.
Yeah.
That is what you will remember, right?
Yeah, exactly that. Oh, thank God for you say that because it's in my mind and everyone's at home.
Exactly.
Panam, we love you.
So that's exactly how you do it. Like you make sure that the characters are fleshed out as well as possible. And of course, you know, you can bend things around, you know, just for the story, but it's really important that, you know, the characters are really, really like natural and authentic, you know, as authentic as possible. So that's something I pay really a lot of attention to. But there's many more things, you know, it's many more things about, like, for instance, the genre and a theme, you know. So our quests, when we work on them, we like to define actually what the quest is going to be. So in Phantom Liberty, for instance, you had a quest, Somewhat Damaged, about this like huge fucking robot that was chasing you, you know. So that is a horror, right? That was a horror quest. And from the very beginning, we knew that we are building something that will be a horror in the cyberpunk world. But often, like when you build something else, it can be a romance, it can be a tragedy or a comedy. There's so many different genres you can work with. But also, another thing that we always define together with the genre is the theme, the topic, What actually is the theme of your quest? And for instance, the topic of Phantom Liberty was individuality versus authority. Those were represented by Somi and by Reed, Those two characters were the most involved in the story, and they were representing different views, different points of view, different aesthetics, all of them were actually representing something. And as a player, by making a choice, standing on one side or another, you're also making an ethical choice. So this is all really important to have, the genre and the theme, because those create a narrative frame for your characters, right? And for your story. So that frame will actually be very helpful to guide you through building your quest. I can tell you so much more about this. There's also, a fact about the pacing, You want to make sure that, you have cool scenes and gameplay, going one after another. But, this is very, very long discussion. But that's the job of quest designer, figuring out all of those things for your quest.
So isn't like one thing or two, it's everything all at once that you need to make sure that is good for the game.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much, like really, because like as a quest designer, you're responsible for creating this final experience that the player is going to have when playing the game, when everything comes good together, art, level design, music, the narrative, when all of those things come together, you are responsible for it at the end,
Great. And how is the relationship between the team that develops and creates the stories and the team of programming? Because you need to make sure that what they make and the art team, you need to make sure that what they make is aligned of what you want to tell about. Right?
Yes, absolutely. So the way we work actually in our studio, we work in a cross-functional teams. You have those cross-functional teams that are composed out of many people from different specialties. So you have programmers, designers, artists, cinematic designers, animators. All of them come together and we work together on the quest. And the thing is that you basically discuss and you walk the team through what you want to build as a quest designer. You explain basically what's the idea, what are the components that you need, what are the elements that you need, and then you work together with your programmers, designers, gameplay designers to actually produce all of those components so you can build it for the game, So you always start from the vision, I would say, The vision is a guarding thing. The vision is actually showing you, okay, how much I need, how much I need from all of those single components, and then those will be made by other people so that you can use it and you can create this complete experience at the end, So keeping everyone in the loop, communication, sharing the vision, explaining it, explaining the references, that you have in mind, incredibly important in that job.
Do you remember any quest that gives you a lot of trouble, not just from the team perspective, but for the perspective of quest designer? Like, man, I want to do this, but oh God, I can't find a way to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I remember so many, but I'll give you a couple examples. So one of them is probably Battle of Kermoren from The Witcher 3. So that's the quest I designed and implemented. And it was the hardest quest that I did in my life. It kicked my ass so much. Because that quest you can have from 9 to 16 characters. You can have so many different variants, right?
Yeah.
Each quest, each character needs to have their moment, right? They need a spotlight. They need to do something, right? Because otherwise it won't feel like your story, right? So you have to have it like that. And then, it was also incredibly difficult to do because when you were playing that quest, you were supposed to actually be losing while you are actually, as a player, killing the enemies and winning.
Yeah.
So you had to be running away from the wild hunt that was really chasing you and the white frost that was coming in and pressuring you. So I had to come up with so many solutions, how to do that.
A lot of possibilities too, I think.
Lots of possibilities, lots of variants, to make sure that it all works, And so that was like Battle of Kermoren. But there is another one, the somewhat damaged from Cyberpunk, from Phantom Liberty. The one about the robot that I mentioned, and the horror, right? That motherfucker, when he was chasing you, in that labyrinth, it was so difficult to make sure that it works because that enemy, he was like AI driven. So he was not scripted in most cases. Everything almost was on AI. So we had to make sure it really works well. But you had like so many different components that had to come into play. The story that you're telling, and so on. So it was such a huge challenge. And also because it's a horror. Horror, it's actually a really difficult genre to work with. You really need to be skilled as a designer to really build a great feeling horror, to really be scared, to really feel the stakes, So I guess those two, but there's like all the time, we had like challenges because our job is actually about making new things, about trying things, about really like trying to build things and new experience for you as a player.
I think that Blood and Wine is like your baby. Was one of the best works that, in my opinion, one of the best works that you guys created ever. But very recently, Shadow of the Earth Tree surpassed you, and obviously not in sales when we consider time for like 5 million of copies, but not just that, but to the highest rated expansion in history in Metacritic. What do you think about it? What's your opinion?
So me personally, I love the challenge, I love the challenge, and I love I don't want to call it the competition, but a challenge of, who's the best. And, Blood and Wine was holding that score, 93 Metacritic, highest rated expansion for 10 years almost.
10 years.
It was almost 10 years, I think it was the time for something to surpass it, so I think I'm fine with actually From Software taking this, It's an amazing developer, Miyazaki. He's a fucking great visionary, So I'm actually really, I think it's best if this is that kind of game that actually took it. We as a studio, we officially congratulated From Software for actually surpassing us.
Yeah, I saw on Twitter, right?
Yeah. So as a creative, as an artist, I want the more really good games. I want more great movies, great books, great music, right? This is something that motivates me because it makes all of us better. It makes all of us make better art. So when I see other studios make great expansions, make great games, it actually motivates me to be better, So I like the challenge,
In Brazil, we have an expression from football that is procura-se rivais em Sudamérica. It's basically we are searching for rivals here in South America. And it was city searching for someone to surpass the expansion. Finally you have, so now you have few to make a next expansion for The Witcher 4, but okay, we won't talk about it, okay, no problem. But I am really expecting for this. And talking about The Witcher and Cyberpunk, how was the transition of making medieval themed missions and environment and world building to a dystopic future, cyberpunk future?
Oh, great question. It was so different, because when you look at the Cyberpunk and the design of the game, it's so different, right? Yeah. You're in first-person perspective. You have a gameplay as a shooting, right, primarily. You have cyberware as well and melee, but shooting. You have vehicles, you have cars, motorcycles that you can drive around, right? So many things is different, futuristic, a setting, of course, the city, instead of forests in The Witcher, right? Everything's so different. So and also I think thing that was probably the most different for us is also gameplay, in Cyberpunk you can create your own character, you can be so many different people, right? You can have so many different play styles. All of those need to be taken into account in the quests, right? Geralt could only fight in swords and then throw signs, that was it, right? And throw bombs, that's it.
Yeah.
When it comes to V can be such a different character.
Yeah, can do everything from pistols to shotgun to hacking to stealth. It's
absolutely to cyber ninja to dashing around. Yeah. There's just so many ways you can play. So that was the major challenge actually, to make sure that in the quests that we are designing them, you have all of those different paths and ways for you to play the quest, and you always have a satisfactory way to finish the quest. But with the way you decided to play, and players can actually create such a strange hybrids, of characters. So we not only had to make sure that those different paths are working, that as a player you can switch the paths, right? Because you can play like a bruiser netrunner, why not, right? You can do that, right? So all of those different paths, they had to be taken into account. it was such a huge challenge, We did so many prototypes. It was such a big learning to actually get there and understand it, how to construct it. And I think like Phantom Liberty is probably the best way we have done it, because we learned so much on the base game, and we could apply all of those lessons actually in the Phantom Liberty, in building content for Phantom Liberty.
One thing that I was talking with a friend about the expansion Phantom Liberty and to the expansions from The Witcher, we realized that it's funny that CD Projekt Red makes the best works in the expansions, because it's like they finally understand everything and have everything in control. Do you really feel? Do you feel like this is what makes the expansions so good, or even better than the base game?
That's actually very on point what you said, really. Because the thing is that one thing to understand is like when you are building a game, like especially AAA game, you are building an engine, you are building a tool set, you are hiring people. Yeah, you are hiring people. You are training people. You are making R&D. You are figuring things out. You are wondering actually how to build things, right? At the moment when you ship the game, you know all of those things, right? You know all of those things suddenly so much easier, right? Suddenly you, as a designer, you have so many ideas, you have the tools that work, the pipelines. And then actually the challenge is in making really great content. The challenge is not making it work, but in making it work really well, And it's so much easier to build expansions. And then you can put all that time, all that passion, all that ideas into actually making something new, something fresh. That's why I think like working on expansions is actually really, really fun, because you're not like kind of like building the technology anymore, designing major things. We have all of that there already. You can just have fun,
About shipping, we need to talk about the elephant in the room.
Of course.
But when Cyberpunk 2077 was released, the audience and the critics was not very good with CD, because the game had a lot of bugs, a lot of crashes, and after that you too had an invasion, a hack attack, and I want to know like how was everything that happened during this period of time in your perspective?
Oh man, I mean it was such a tough time for us, honestly. Like I was one of the people that was of course talking to our players about the game before the release, right? So a lot of people knew me, right? I mean, man, I was getting a hate even on LinkedIn. Can you imagine what it takes to get a hate on LinkedIn? I get it when you get it on Twitter or on Instagram.
Yeah.
But on LinkedIn,
it's like I can't even compare to anything. Like it's so weird.
One thing I want to say though is like it's important to acknowledge that we understand there was an issue. Like I don't think anyone with a sane mind in our studio would say that the criticism wasn't justified. We know it was justified, but still, it was really, really hard, just, getting a flood of hate everywhere. It was really hard. And then as you said, we started working on the patches and started working on the game to improve it. And in the same time, we got hacked, It was so tough at that time. The time when we worked on the patch 1.2 and 1.3, that was the hardest time in my career, seriously. Like the hardest time in my career. And I'm 19 years in the industry, man. Like that was the worst moment, honestly. But we kept working, we kept trying, and then with patch 1.5, we shipped the game on new game platforms, on next-gen platforms. And then actually, Edge Runners Anime, that we've been working with Trigger since 2018 on, we've been working on it, came out, and actually it did such a great job of introducing the players into the world of Cyberpunk, into easing them into like that cognitive overload that Cyberpunk was sometimes. And it just introduced that world, showed that world in such a fantastic way, and made the players want more. And when the players came back to the game, suddenly we had an update 1.6 that we did, and you had all of those patches that we did so far, all of those changes that they came together as this much better experience. And then suddenly players started seeing this, And that was the first moment when we actually see hope, I was like, holy shit, maybe this is possible, that we can actually turn this around. Because like, maybe it's possible because like so far, we've been working really hard, but there was a doubt constantly, like, can we really turn it around? So many people were saying, even media influencers were advising us, saying like, just leave it, move on to the next thing. And we didn't want to, right? We wanted to make it right, but it was so tough, for that time. And then after 1.6, we saw like that the perspective was changing. That people were saying that the game is actually really fun, things that they liked in it, and so on. And that gives us actually so much like the second wind to work on 2.0 and to work on Phantom Liberty, patch 2.0 and Phantom Liberty, to work on those two. Because there was this motivation, this feeling of we can actually turn it around. And then we shipped it, and then man, immediately after shipping it, we went into working into patch 2.1, another huge update with a metro system, with update to romances, like so many things that our players were asking for. We're like, let's do it, let's build it, let's show that we really care, we really want to make it right, And then of course, the reception was really positive of 2.0, of Phantom Liberty, and then we felt, holy fuck, actually maybe we can do it, maybe actually we could turn it around. And it's so good to hear, from people like you and others, that they feel that we have actually managed, It's the best reward for us for all that work.
You guys achieved the redemption that you were searching for, but how all this affect and change the way that CDPR works and develop its games?
Yeah, I mean, it changed so many things, honestly, because like that release and the situation, that was a major waking point, for all of us. Being like, okay, we need to change. We need to change the way we work, the way we communicate, the way we work together, the way we produce, the way we market our games, everything. We went into something that we called a transformation. We built something that we called Red 2.0, so the project Red 2.0, with a, we started from our board. Our board members really wanted to do it right, and they really wanted to change this. So we went and changed our methodology to agile, So instead of working in a waterfall, waterfall is when you make one thing after another in a staggered way. So imagine you like concept the character, then you model that character, then you make animations, then you put that character into the game.
Like a sequence.
Yeah, it's like a sequence, yeah. In Agile, everyone works together from the get-go, from the beginning, right? So when we make a content, when we have a content team working on a quest, you have all of those people working a content team together, to build that content. It's really, really important. And then everyone's on the loop. Everyone understands what they're doing. Communication's so much easier. Everything's so much clearer, And so we learned actually so much. Like that led to complete change in the way we produce games. And Phantom Liberty is the first one that we built like that. Phantom Liberty was the first expansion that we made, first product, first game, that we made with that in mind, with the agile methodology after the transformation. And it changed completely everything, the way we talked about Phantom Liberty, the way we shown it, before the release and after. It impacted everyone in the company. And I think like, I'm actually really grateful that we went through this, because man, it made us so much stronger, It's like when you have a bone, it fucking breaks, but then when it glues together, grows together, it won't break in the same spot again.
Yeah.
It's a stronger bone, at this point. And like, that's how we feel now. Like, we are so much stronger, like, than we've ever been. Like, honestly, like, my worst moment in a career was that hack, and the time when we worked on patch 1.2, 1.3. My best moment was 2023, when we were working Phantom Liberty, already like a machine, knowing what we were doing, producing it and shipping Phantom Liberty. Really. It was such a change.
Great. And to wrap up, let's make a personal question, but not exactly personal.
Okay.
What's your favorite mission ever that you made? And what mission you would love to rewrite nowadays?
Oh, wow. That's an interesting question. Okay, I think like
I love this kind of reaction.
Because
I love this kind of reaction.
Because there's so many. I did a lot of quests for Witcher 3, and I did plenty for Cyberpunk. Like, I think in The Witcher 3, I would probably pick Bloody Baron for like my most favorite one.
Look at here, Bloody Baron. My favorite one. It's really my favorite one.
I'm so glad. There's of course other people that contributed to it, but I did majority of the design and huge part of this storyline. So I think Bloody Baron I would probably also pick the Battle of Kermoren, Last Wish, the pickup in Cyberpunk, like a Supreme in Cyberpunk when you play concert. All of those are all mine. So I don't know. I love them all. But I think I would pick probably Family Matters, so Bloody Baron storyline. And the one that I would rewrite, oh God. Okay, Wandering in the Dark. So that is the quest when you're meeting Kairamets on the No Man's Land, and you're going through those caves there, later chasing Wild Hunt. At the end, meeting this like Wild Hunt guy that you fight, and then finding Lara Doran's grave. I don't know if you remember this from The Witcher 3. It was the introduction of Kairamets.
Oh, yeah, that she tricks you and you can kill her.
Oh, no, that's the end of that storyline.
Okay, the beginning, okay.
The beginning. So Wandering in the Dark. I think it's probably the weakest quest I've ever done. It was a really difficult one to make, because I had a lot of locations already done. There's just so many things that were in place that I had to work with so many constraints. But anyway, I don't want to sound like that. I didn't do a great job on this. I'm not too happy with this. Probably that is the one that I would be like, I would love to redo it. And I know from our players, they didn't enjoy that one too much, So that would be probably my idea.
Great. I want to ask you to say to our audience what to expect from CD Projekt Red for the next Cyberpunk, for the next The Witcher. I know that you can say a lot about it, but what can we expect from you guys?
Okay. Well, my dear, so first of all, thank you so much for playing our games. It's really important for us because we do those things for you. That's the reality. You are the important part of this whole thing, and we do it for you to create experience for you. We have learned actually a lot of things when building Witcher 3 and Cyberpunk 2077. There's so many lessons that we have. We have used some of those lessons on Phantom Liberty because we really, really wanted to give you something of the quality, something that you can play, something you can be proud of. And what I really want to do, I want to make you proud of us, make you proud of what we are building, make you actually really enjoy what we are building. And this is what we will be trying to do with everything we can and really focus on this. And I hope you are going to play our games.
Great, it was a pleasure to talk to you, Pawel.
Thank you so much.
And não se esqueça de seguir o Voxel, deixar o like, porque essa entrevista aqui maravilhosa vocês viram exclusivamente aqui. E vai ter mais. Então,
obrigado.
Um beijo, um abraço. Obrigado. Valeu, fui!